Hello, everyone. Good day, and welcome to this week's Leon the Great podcast. I'm your host, as always, the host with the most of the trends of the tech, Leon, here back with another week. And I wanted to get started on doing a podcast for this week. And so this time is another episode of Nvidia, and we've got to talk about the current state, what Nvidia is doing. Nvidia's CEO has said something incredibly so idiotic, and for that, I'm going to go ahead and break it down because with everything, I think it's just so numb. This guy's a numbnuts at this point. He basically following what every CEO is doing, especially chasing the AI boom or chasing that AI high, which I think it's a extremely bad idea from the get-go, just chasing the next high, chasing the next trend going forward. And while I do talk about trends in the channel, this is not the way to go. And I'm not really happy what's been happening in the state of technology, in the state of everything, and they want to AIfy everything at this point, which I don't necessarily agree with. And I'm gonna go and read this article on Game Informer and what words I have to say about this. So first is first. Let's get going, and let's go ahead and get going with this article. And this is coming from Game Informer, where the headline says, Nvidia CEO says, "We created the modern video game industry, but it's pushed into AI upscaling has done is destroy good game optimization." And this is quite right. And what this author has headlined right there. And to Jensen Huang on this one. First of all, you do not know what you're talking about. Games has been around before Nvidia. It's like, what the hell? Are you that? Are you that out of touch at this point? God, man, I swear this guy, what a dumbass punk. Anyways, we're gonna continue on, which here in the and the heading here says, in the computer graphics industry, without RTX, there would be nothing today. Well, I'm not sure about that too, because if you look at what's been happening with the computers, or with the age of computing, I'm sure computing would have evolved even without RTX around. So I don't know about that. But I mean, look, way I see with Nvidia, they did made games even further. I mean, I would say to Nvidia's credit, they have evolved gaming to much more of a 3D landscape, which is great and all for developers and players alike. But I don't think he knows what he's saying, because if you think about it, he's misses the point that video games, we've seen video game consoles from the Nintendos and the Segas and the Ataris, and it's like, how do you no, don't miss me with that. And continue on with here, it says, while speaking at the Morgan Stanley Media and Telecom Conference this week, Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang had some outlandish claims to make about his company's stake in the video game industry. The AI and graphics card giant's CEO said that thanks to the business production of GPUs and 3D graphics systems in the best gaming PCs, his brand created the modern video game industry. Oh my God. Computer graphics was used for things like animation movies. Of course, at the time that we were founded, which was back in 1993, Hung said, it was during that time where computer graphics was becoming more compatible, and we could simulate virtual reality with it, and we apply it to creating new industries which did not exist at the time, called video games. And so 3D graphics was modernized in my time, consumerized in my time, and the whole video game industry was created In my time, he surmissed. Neglecting the arcade era, a slew of the best retro consoles contenders and countless video games made before RTX was even a glint on one of his reflective jackets. He had even more to say. It was Nvidia that pulled it all together. The reason why we're so beloved in the video game industry, and we're so deep in it still, in a lot of ways, we created the modern video game industry, which is not true. First of all, I have to counter on this because he did not modernize the video game industry at all, too. Yeah, you may have had gone and created graphics cards for consumers and business alike, but right now, the way you're going at it with Nvidia, it just seems to get worse and worse. And also, I mean, with the recent push, with how you're pushing this through with AI, first of all, I don't see how people are going to buy into Nvidia's Nvidia at all, because how are you going to end up bring consumers when in fact you're just alienating consumers alike? And this is one thing I find with Jensen is he's just lost his marbles. It's like how are you going to say something so ridiculous and so benign at this point? Which, I mean, I can get into a long tangent with Jensen Huang, because I know he was in a interview many weeks ago actually, and I could talk about that, but unfortunately that's going to be another video for another time, which I can go over and talk and go over it. But right now, I think I want to just focus on the article at hand, which let's go ahead and continue on. Here it says, all of this is a pretty astounding take for the CEO of an AI company to make, especially over a year of backlash towards its fake frames, approach to its most recent generation of graphics card, and when the company's AI arm is much a larger outfit than its GPU manufacturing. But the thing that really made my ears perk up was what come next. All right, let's hit it. What came next? Now I want to know. From the algorithms associated with it, the libraries in the computer graphics industry, without RTX, there would be nothing today. Without our contributions of all algorithms that goes into all of the game engines, you wouldn't be able to enjoy the type of video games you enjoy today. And then it continues. It was here that I had to stop and begrudgingly agree with Hung's sentiment. I'll bet not in a way that he likely wanted me to, although he's blatantly ignoring the tireless work of game developers who spent their lives creating the exceptional video games we have access to today. He does have a point, a really small point, but I do think he's wrong majorly, how I see it. But so much of modern video games performance these days is dictated by whether or not one has support for Nvidia DLSS, AMD FSR, or Intel XeSS. AI upscaling is a huge way for people to unlock higher frame rates on their gaming PCs and consoles. Without it, even Nvidia's most up-to-date hardware like the RTX 5070 can't run games like Cyberpunk 2077, which came out over 5 years ago in 4K with ray tracing and up to 10 frames per second, let alone 60 frames per second. Holy crap. Oh man, that's pretty bad. Yes, games have come a lot more technically demanding to the point where hardware can barely keep up with their demands. But isn't it then up to the hardware brands to try and match the software's speed with the components that can actually run them? The best CPU feel like they've kept up with innovations in architecture and engineering. The best RAM for gaming and the best SSDs for gaming have arguably become faster than they need to be for gaming tasks, but graphics cards are ironic bottleneck of the gaming hardware market. And which, by the way, I am going to give credit to the journalist that wrote this, because And they are quite of a bottleneck because even today, if you are running PCs, you do have to have a graphics card to run majority of your games, really, because you don't want to be relying on your CPU to run it. For obvious reasons, you don't, because most 3D games are pretty much very much intense games that in it's much more demanding. But that's why I feel at this point, this is just me coming from me, Leon here, that I do feel that we should step a little bit backwards and not having to push things technology so fast, because right now graphics cards prices are on a all-time high, and we're not seeing that price going any lower right now. And who knows if it'll come down lower. And I just think that nobody is going to throw in the money for the next PC graphics cards. And right now, they're just a lot. It's just a lot of money coming out from anywhere up front, either whether it's Nvidia or AMD at this point. First of all, AMD is another big player, and that's why I mean, yes, that's why I feel with video games, it's like, how far do we need to go and continue to push in innovations and push everything? First of all, and I will put it this way, I still rock the 1080p, okay? And while the TV in the living room is rocking the 4K, and I use the 4K because for viewing purposes too, and I have no problem with 4K, but it's just like, I don't see a whole lot of difference when it comes to quality, and I'm just like, okay, that's cool. I mean, it looks nice, fancy, and shiny, and it's like, how much further do you really need to continue to push and push and push? And even when I was younger, I say, yeah, I like the quality of what's been happening with TVs, and I thought 1080 was like the final push to anything, and we've already seen that push, because I thought 1080 for most high definition televisions were great. It's just like, I don't really think I need to. We really need to push it any further than that too. And I know there's already TV manufacturers are going to be pushing for like 8K or God knows, probably 16K some point down the road. I just don't see what's the use of it. Like, why do I need to see every detail and every strand of detail in my games? All I want is to know, one, is the gameplay fun, and two, can my game work without all the bugs and issues during the launch day? With most developers, I feel this that they always leave things further behind, and they don't go and clean out the necessary bugs, and they'll always tell people in the community forums like, hey, please be patient with us because we are working on solutions and fixes, which I feel that they should have been added right during development, all that too, because that's why I feel that with anything else, I just feel that games should just be games. I don't care if the quality is high, right? I don't really need to see superb graphical details in my games. I mean, sure, people will say, well, I don't like older games because they're so outdated and I'm not going to play it. But it's like, I just don't care, right? I mean, even so, it's like, how much further do you want to even push for all that technology? It's like, nobody really needs it. Like Nvidia, and that's one thing, is like, sure, you have a like DLSS 2.0, and look, I'm sure that the quality is amazing on it too. Now, don't get me wrong. And with everything that has included with ray tracing and all that good stuff, but I really don't necessarily need to be pushing the boundaries every graphic card generation. I just don't need that. But so, yeah, and I do agree with this. The person that wrote this right here, which I have to give him credit for. And continuing on with the article, Nvidia's answer to this complex issue was leaning more heavily into AI upscaling. And it's now developed such an advanced form of it with multi-frame generation that it's really the thing you're buying one of the brand's GPUs for It's essentially a cheat code for better performance without needing to spend ages in the settings menu of your favorite games, but it's a software fix, not a hardware one. I can imagine how helpful to a tool that is for game developers too, because instead of spending months polishing a game before release to make sure it performs well enough not to be reviewed bombed, all they need to do is secure some DLSS support, and their game will run well for a large swath of players. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like they have to do this even during development, right there. But it's clear where I stop agreeing with Han's sentiments. Nvidia certainly created the current status quo in graphical performance, but maybe we should be pointing the finger, not giving thanks. Games have always been computationally demanding. There were games on the PS2, which this week turned 26 years old, and before that, were doing extremely technically demanding things with physics and graphics systems. There were 3D graphics that had never been seen before in games like Shadow of the Colossus, GTA San Andreas, and even the burnout titles. Those games were demanding, but they were made to run on the PS2 because that was the hardware people had to access. And from the way I can tell of this guy's writing, look, dude. First of all, he's probably in he's probably in his 30s like I am, and probably, who knows, early 30s, mid 30s. And first of all, he's not even speaking on the perspective of the older folks, like when PCs were around in the 90s. Like if you take a look at games like Doom, for example, like when Doom came out in the early 90s, people were blown away of the graphics, and people just didn't know what to think about it. And they thought, man, Doom is great. I can't believe they've pushed the boundaries for Doom. And that's what people thought about that back in the 90s. And they said, man, this is like the push. But then you see modern games now they look really realistic. And it's like, how much more generations do they have to continue pushing boundary after boundary? It's like it just wouldn't make a lot of sense now too. And even before the 90s, I mean, you've seen graphics that were 2D pixel sprites, but they were fun. They were great games to enjoy. And that's why, even for me, I just don't give a damn about what comes next after that. And in the last game, I've made a huge purchase. Actually, two purchases. Last year was back in October. I've purchased Little Nightmares 3. I mean, it was alright of its own. And then the latest release, I spent actually less than 14 days. Yeah, less than 14 days ago was Reanimal. And I would say that it's not a disappointing game. It's great, but I feel that even the main story was short, which I felt that they should have included the levels within it, and then instead of having players like us having to spend extra money on it. To me, 3 hours of the story. I'm sure there's side quests on it too, but if even so, $40, even for a $40 game, it's not even worth it in my personal experience. I already wrote a review negatively about Reanimal, which, I mean, sure, the game is phenomenal, and I mean it is a step up to Little Nightmares 1 and 2, but I feel that the way I saw it was that even so, that game was astonishing, but it wasn't game changing at all, in my personal opinion, in my personal thing with the game. Because for one, I'm glad they made it very 3D like. The game was just incredible. But now I look at it this way, is that, am I going to spend anything that's over $70 for games, even in today's economy? Oh, hell to no. I wouldn't. But it's just like back then when games were ported right on the CDs, or CDs and DVDs, to run these games. And one thing I actually do remember when I was younger, was that it was cheaper to get a game like that back then, and in the 2000s. And I can go over on pricing, but that was one thing, is that you've had fun games, even though the games there was quite of an expense with the console games, which I feel that the 2000s was a peak of console gaming in which they were really, really good. The releases were great. You've had competition between Microsoft's Xbox, Sony's PlayStation, and then Nintendo when they've released the GameCube during 2001. Yeah, 2001, which that was that was just a amazing console of its own, and it truly is astonishing. It truly is awesome. And then continuing on with this man's article here, games today aren't optimized like they used to be. The industry which Nvidia currently didn't create, which I actually agree with this guy that right. And by the way, who is this young man that wrote this? And yeah, his name is Duncan Robertson. So Duncan Robertson said this in the article, which he makes actually 100% great points here. Which he says the industry which Nvidia certainly didn't create was functioning just fine without the algorithms. Jensen Huang was attituding to. The first 3D compatible GPU was the 3D FX Voodoo graphics in the mid 1990s. Nvidia conceptualized the modern graphics card and gave life to more 3D graphical rendering power for game developers. Yes, modern games were eons above PS2 ones in terms of the amount of computation power they need. But back in the day, game performance didn't rely on some Nvidia flavored secret sauce to run smoothly. It feels to me more and more these days, as someone who reviews all sorts of gaming PCs and components, that games are now made for hardware that doesn't exactly exist. It's like we've all accepted that it's okay for Nvidia upscaling to put a band-aid over the wound. How many PC ports have we received in recent years that have immediately shocked paying customers with poor performance on even the most advanced hardware? HighGuard is a very recent example, but I'm sure you'll remember the performance woes of Monster Hunter Wilds, Jedi Survivor, or Sony's ports of The Last of Us Part 1 and 2 on PC. Poor performance is everywhere today, but so long as you can flick a switch with DLSS or FSR and still see a higher frame rate, it's alright. I don't mean this to sound like a slight at game developers, but because the truth is that they're trying to cater to so many different types of hardware while making their game stand out in a high competitive and oversaturated market. It's not like the old days when they could really get to know the few specific bits of hardware and design games directly for them. Not to mention, they're working against demands from publishers, friction with modern engines, and limited budgets, especially in smaller indie game teams. I take issue with Nvidia, not game developers. I take issue with Hong claiming that he created the modern video games industry and saying that without its prohibitively expensive technology, nobody would be able to play them, which is so right, by the way. And yeah, very, very true. This brand has arguably created that issue by not manufacturing consumers hardware that can keep up with the industry's demand. Instead, it created a cure-all in DLSS that exclusive to its platforms, and then hiked the price of all that cure-all for so that gamers accept that it's the norm to pay for hardware that's really just a ticket to AI upscaling software. And that's pretty much correct on this too, because I'm not going to go through the last few lines of this right here, what Duncan writes, which I have to agree. And this is where I find the issue in modern games and in everything that's been going on is the price hikes. And first of all, I don't think many of us are going to end up spending with high-end graphics card like for over $500. Like actually, you go to Newegg, you go to Amazon, you see the prices for graphics cards, and they're ridiculous. And first of all, that's not me. I'm not spending that kind of money just so I can play some fancy, smancy game. It's like, be real now. Come on now. Do I really need this in my life? Absolutely not. And honestly, this is so absurd when he says that he was the one that created modern video games, which is 100% not true. And the fact that you miss the point that there were video games even in the 70s. Like, actually, you go back to, like, let's say my dad's day, like Pac-Man, like the arcade games. There were games that were really fun to play, not graphic intensive like the graphics card, but you still had fun ass games that you can just go out and enjoy. And I actually will say this, but I actually enjoy 2D gaming still to this day, and they are creating. There are developers, like in even small studios, creating fun titles, even less than the marked up prices for, like, the I don't know, like one of those HDR games marked up to $70. Like, they are making really good games, like, for $20, and still they're not doing too bad. And that's why I wish most major studios can look and say, hey, listen, let's go ahead and start creating something that can be fun for most consumers. And that's why I feel that most people have lost the plot, and they've really have chased the high of AI. To this point is like nobody actually gives a damn about AI, and probably a few of you do, but I necessarily don't care about AI to use on my daily life. And sure, it can be, like I say, it can be a tool to use, but I actually don't use it on my second tab on my browser for searching. Like, sometimes you can find things on the internet and look up stuff when it comes to, like, AI in certain instances, but then I find that you can probably find most things through a search engine, which I don't think is that bad at all. And look, let's say if there was something that I actually need help with, an actual help on, like assignments and stuff like that, you could probably search for it on a simple search away on search engine. It doesn't matter too. Like, I feel that with AI, that's been pushed so much on people's faces, and that people think that this is like the gateway solution to everything. And I just don't think that is the solution to all your problems. And I find this ridiculous, because people have bought this AI thing thinking that this is it, folks. We gotta push it, and we gotta have people use the AI too. And I'm sure that that those tools can be great when you're using it for developing, or even the fact that there's been people that said maybe we can just use AI for medical research, which, hey, I'm down with that. Probably we can also find a cure for cancer. Yes, let's do something like that. But I honestly think that they are pushing this narrative about AI a lot too, and the fact that most of these companies are buying out RAMs and buying out graphics card because of the demand for AI, which I just don't think we really need these AI tools. And I feel that we are being pushed down in our throats so much now at this point. Like, it's like Jensen Huang has lost it, and someone that some people looked up to a couple years back. I think people are going against him at this point, and knowing that he doesn't even know what he's saying. I mean, the guy's just ridiculous, and it's like any other CEO that's in the tech field, they're doing the same thing. They don't give a damn whatsoever. Anyways, guys, I'd love to know your thoughts on this, because this right here just came to my radar. I felt that this needs to be covered, and to me, AI is very overblown. And look, probably in the next couple of years, probably it'll be much better. But first of all, if you're using things like ChatGPT, it doesn't give you the correct answers. And one of the things I remember listening to online, where there was if you're looking for flowers or looking for plants, and knowing what kinds of leaves you're looking for. There was actually someone that said that don't use Chat GPT for herbals, because if you were to pick out the incorrect plants, and let's say if you picked out a poisonous plants, and Chat GPT told you to, then you are getting the incorrect information, and also that can be very, very harmful. And getting bad information like that can really affect anybody, because you don't want Chat GPT to influence your decision. Because I honestly think you should actually find a professional and find somebody that actually knows about herbals and plants and stuff like that too. Because not coming from Chat GPT, I think people are crazy to do stuff like that. And coming from that perspective, I just don't think AI is going to be 100%, because if you start replacing so many people now, it's not going to work. So it's not going to work because you still need oversight and looking at everywhere else. And that's why I feel that with Jensen is just one of those things that he's just become such a cancer lately to the industry. And it's like, come on, guy, nobody's buying your bullshit at this point. So but anyways, let me know your thoughts and takes on this article right here. I'll have it pasted down below on the show notes, so that way you can just read up yourself. So anyways, Leon LeGray signing out, and I'll be speaking more to you guys pretty shortly, or more so pretty soon. Have a good day. Bye for now.